Coming up on Network Africa, dozens of soldiers killed in Burkina Faso after militant group attack on Dargo military base. Togo confirms over 60 people killed this year in Al-Qaeda-linked attacks. Plus, Cote d'Ivoire's President Alassane Ouattara confirms a fourth-term bid vows peace amid growing terror threats. Hello and welcome to the program today. I'm Layo Olarinde. At least 50 soldiers have been killed in Burkina Faso following a deadly assault on a military base in Dargo in the northern region of the country. Local sources say about 100 militants stormed the base on Monday, killing the troops before looting and setting it ablaze. The armed group JNIM is suspected of carrying out the attack. They have been behind many recent deadly operations across West Africa. Burkina Faso continues to battle an escalating security crisis. Armed groups now control large swaths of the country, especially in rural regions far from the capital. The violence has sparked major political upheaval, including 2 military coups since the year 2022. Well, analysts say the Dargo attack underscores the deepening instability and the heavy toll on both soldiers and civilians in one of the region's most volatile conflict regions. As insecurity spirals in Togo, the country's foreign minister says a group affiliated with Al-Qaeda has killed at least 54 civilians and 8 soldiers so far this year. Robert Ducey said there have been 15 incidents in northern Togo, which borders Burkina Faso, perpetrated by the insurgent group JNIM. Togo has seen a rise in jihadist activity in recent years as groups linked to the Islamic State and Al-Qaeda spread from the West African Sahel region. The surge comes at a time when regional governments in Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger have moved away from their traditional Western allies. Or following a wave of coups, the 3 Sahel nations have turned to Russia for military assistance. Here in Nigeria, in the aftermath of the brutal attack on Bindu Jebu, a community in Riyom local government area of Plateau State, hundreds of survivors, mostly women, children and the elderly, have taken refuge in a makeshift internally displaced persons camp. Well, many of them are still grappling with the trauma of the attack, living in an overcrowded hall with little or nothing to eat.
This is all that is left of Bindi Jebu, a once quiet community shattered by violence. On July the 15th, gunmen stormed the village in the dead of night, killing 17 people, wounding many, and leaving destruction in their wake. The dead have since been laid to rest in a mass grave, while the pain lingers for survivors. Their homes are gone, their farmlands destroyed, and their lives disrupted. At this internally displaced persons camp, hundreds have found temporary shelter. Among them is this mother of 7 who fled the attack barefoot with her children.
We heard sporadic gunshots around 3 a.m. and we were confused. While we were wondering what to do, they broke into the pastorum and caught many people using machetes. They hit the little children and pushed them outside before burning the houses, burning everyone that was inside.
Her story mirrors that of many others here. They have lost not just homes, but livelihoods and loved ones. The conditions in this camp are harsh. Food is scarce, water is limited, and many are in need of medical attention.
A lot of people are here in the camp, especially small children, the aged. So they are much here. And most of them are lying on the floor, on the bare floor, on the ground. So if there were need for any assistance from corporate bodies, away from government so that they have a place to sleep. And most so, at times, the food they get here is minimal.
In the aftermath of the attack, the National Youth Wing of the Barron Molders Association held a press briefing calling for immediate aid for the people.
Humanitarian situation is very, very appalling because at the moment, these people have only received a little, particularly from the faith-based organization who have reached out in their own little way to their country. But there are thousands of internally displaced persons, not only in Rio, but across other local governments in the state.
For those displaced persons, survival is now a daily struggle. However, beyond survival lies a deeper longing for justice, for peace, and for a place to call home once again.
To politics now, Ivorian President Alassane Ouattara has announced his intention to run for a fourth term in the country's October election. In a video statement, the 83-year-old said his health is not an issue and his candidacy was driven by the need to preserve national stability amid ongoing security and economic challenges in Côte d'Ivoire. President Ouattara argues a new constitution approved in 2016 reset his two-term limit, meaning he's allowed to stand. He will be the polls frontrunner as several potential challengers have already been barred from the race. Well, in parts of Africa, political power seems harder to give up than to win. Many African leaders manage to cling to power for decades, either by force, breaking laws, or bending constitutions. Well, these extended stays in office often reshape political systems, leaving little room for new leadership to emerge. Well, let's discuss this further. Joining us now is Oluseyi Adeyemo, a public policy analyst. Thank you so much for speaking to us on Network Africa.
Thank you for having me.
Well, why do you think, some African leaders remain so determined to extend their rule despite their advanced age and decades in power?
I think we all know the answer. I mean, being in government in Africa, and I think the rest of the world, is very, very attractive. I mean, you spend the collective wealth of the people on your own largesse. Like you alone are going on a trip, 30 or 50 people are escorting you. All the police that are meant to be guarding the rest of us is only guarding you and your family. And in most cases, they have a lot of things that is clearly, that cannot be allowed for other people to pretend on. And so they are afraid that if they leave power, those things will be uncovered. And at the end of the day, they will probably pay for all their misdeeds whilst they were in government. And so for me, these are very clear reasons. And that's why I believe across Africa and even in the rest of the world, the so-called superpower, a lot of people will prefer they're in government forever. Unfortunately for us in Africa, this is the kind of government we have always practiced. As a people, we have the KBACs, we have the OBs, we have the emirs, and they've always, stayed in power forever until they die. And unfortunately, in some cases, their family will then take over and their own, and it remains in that space. So you will never really get to uncover or get what I call the gains of governance from them because they are there perpetually and nobody can go in there to check them. So I believe that's the reason why go ahead.
But with what you've said, what does this say about, the state of democracy and political succession, the planning of political succession in countries where these leaders have been in power for such long periods?
I think I will want to dwell more on the planning of succession because as an African, I also have a problem with that type of government they call democracy. Because you see, I think we've, talked about it so much, and though we all see that it has failed, because if democracy is meant to really deal with separation of power. It is clearly that is not what we're enjoying in Africa, because the executive always find a way to subdue the power of the judiciary and the legislature, and most often whoever is president or governor is the Lord and Master. And so that, separation of power that we're supposed to enjoy, we never enjoy it, because we all know that absolute power corrupts absolutely. And so as long as a particular person or group of people, a party, are the ones who, hold sway in all areas of governance or government, then you definitely can never have a good deal. Even we see it even in the spiritual space. Pastors, the moment they become the GO or the head of of an organization, and nobody is able to question them, you never get good governance for them. So what I think we should be looking at seriously and to really deal with is the succession plan. How do we ensure, whether you're going to spend 5 years, 10 years, we're particular about it, and we say, look, this is the only way we can get fairness in the treatment. Because, so what is governance? Governance is saying we're entrusting, the wealth and well-being of all of us in the hands of this group of people, because we believe they will be able to properly manage our limited resources, and at the end of the day we'll have a better life, we'll have security, we'll have everything going on for us well. So if that is not what we're looking at, and checking whether the person has been able to do it, because for me, I think the real opposition are the people, because clearly in Africa we have seen that the so-called opposition, when they are not in power, are very loud. The moment they get into power, they almost always do the same thing. And so at the end of the day, in my opinion, those who claim that oppositions are not the real oppositions. I mean, I think it's the people. And so it's about time that as a people, we need to also start to look at what I call social enterprise. In other words, providing solution in the business we do on how we can solve our problem by providing lights, providing road, and telling these people that these things are doable and they're not rocket science. But as long as we rely on the political group or class to provide the solution for us, they have failed, and in my opinion, they will continue to fail, because in most cases it's all about them and not about the people.
Yeah, and we've seen, the impact of this, of such prolonged stays in power, the impact it has on governance, political stability, and also the public trust in the democratic process. But what really is the problem here? Is it the absence of perhaps the credible opposition, or the systems deliberately designed to sideline or weaken political challenges?
Like I said, it's very attractive. It's a very, very attractive space to stay. I can use this as an example. If nobody's going to query me or you to come to work, and we can stay in our homes, sleep all day, and we still have all that we need, the money and affluence, we all stay in our bed and we'll never go out. In other words, if nobody is going to check me, for instance, by saying, why am I coming late to the house, though I am the father of the house, I'll probably sometimes hang out with the boys and sometimes sleep out. And at the end of the day, that's the way I'll live my life. So for me, because it is attractive, they make a lot of money, they have a lot of power, they can do anything they like. So they would always want to do it. And because we're human beings, all of us, I mean, and I say all of us, the moment is like we're all queuing, we're waiting in line. As soon as we're given that opportunity, that is all we always do. So I believe that to form a proper opposition is for the people themselves to take their future in their hands and start to prefer solution. Let the solution be so out there that even a small child in Africa will know how to run at least a local government. I think it is about time we push those things out. Let people know that, look, we can do this. This is doable. These are the processes. This is the way this ought to be done. Reduce the strength we're spending our time on the system of government, but spend those time, invest those time, knowledge and creativity on the solutions. Really making it very easy by all of us thinking about it. Africans are very creative people. We've done a lot of things in all sort of spaces, in the creative space. I think those kind of magic that we perform in those areas, we need to start to look at doing those things in the political space as well. Maybe if we're able to make this thing, take away the covering away from the face and letting them feel that, it is rocket science to rule us, maybe then we'll start to get more results. But if it's about looking up to the political class that we have right now, including you and I think my opinion is that we're not going to be able to get the solution, because it seems to me that everybody's just waiting for their turn, and whenever they get there, they look out for themselves, their family, and their cronies, and that is not going to take us anywhere.
All right, then. Thank you so much. Oluseyi Adeyemo, public policy analyst. Thank you for your time on Network Africa.
Thank you for having me.
Well, let's take a break now on the program. Still to come. Celebrating the African heritage, Ghana is holding the Liberation from Slavery Panafest Day celebration. Please join us again. Welcome back to the program. Algerian President Abdelmadjid Tebboune has received his Lebanese counterpart, President Joseph Aoun, in Algiers for a two-day bilateral visit. President Aoun arrived at the Houari Boudamaine International Airport, where he was welcomed by President Tebboune during a reception ceremony with military honors. President Aoun's visit is the first in 23 years by a Lebanese president to Algeria. He says Lebanon will never forget Algeria's stance in the UN Security Council during the Israeli attacks on Lebanon, nor the urgent assistance provided by Algeria following the explosion at the Beirut port in 2020. The visit will cover various topics, including developing cooperation in trade, culture, media, education, health and technology, as well as coordinating on Arab and regional issues of mutual interest. The United Nations Food Systems Summit stocktake in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, has ended, with world leaders calling for strengthened collaboration and mobilization of finance for food systems transformation. Heads of state, including Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, UN Deputy Secretary General Amina Mohammed, Kenyan President William Ruto, were all in attendance. Ethiopian Prime Minister Ahmed notes that beyond finance and technology, fair trade rules are also needed to create a level playing field alongside strong global partnerships that empower local solutions. Meanwhile, Kenyan President William Ruto in his speech said reversing global food crisis requires urgent action.
We also need fair trade rules that create a level playing field and a strong global partnership that empower local solutions.
Food is a right, a cultural expression, the pillar of a nation's identity and sovereignty. But it is also the first step towards being truly free, independent, and masters of our own destiny.
The world can still reverse this trend, but only if we urgently and decisively reorient the architecture of global food systems.
In Ghana, thousands of people have gathered in Cape Coast for the Panafest and Emancipation Day celebrations. It's a vibrant tribute to ancestral heritage and a powerful call for reparative justice. The festival, now in its 17th edition, draws participants from across all the African continent and the diaspora.
It was a day of colour, culture and solemn remembrance in Cape Coast, as traditional leaders, diaspora delegates and government officials came together for Panafest 2025 and Emancipation Day.
Moral, political and economic ramifications. Beyond the finance, some of us want to see a time when Africans are not living at the razor edge of life, no matter where they are, no matter how rich the country is or how poor that country is. We ought to live like other people also live. Find our levels of confidence, see ourselves in the future, and not to be afraid. That is also important. And that goes beyond money. It goes beyond being ourselves and also making our contributions to the world like everybody else does.
In the past and you don't remember them.
The dramatic reenactments served as stark reminders of the transatlantic slave trade, a trauma that still shapes African identity and development.
Panafest and Emancipation Day are not just commemorative events. They are acts of cultural resilience, resistance, and vessels of memory. They remind us of the tragic rupture of the transatlantic slave trade, the suffering endured, and the legacy of resilience and creativity our ancestors passed on. At the heart of this year's celebration is a call for reparative justice. We must not remember, we must act. Reparative justice demands a reckoning of history, but also a restructuring of the future. It speaks to the need for moral, economic, and cultural redress, a renewal of systems that have long profited from.
For Ghana, Panafest is more than performance. It's a spiritual and political homecoming. The festival this year, Justice, Healing, and African Consciousness, drew together royals, activists, and diaspora members from around the world.
Without question, it's long overdue. Everybody who has ever suffered any atrocity that the global community has recognized as, in fact, an atrocity, they've never, ever hesitated to address the issue of reparations. Even as wars are being fought today in disturbed areas, people are already calculating the reparative costs and repairing that land. So why would it take Africa centuries for this conversation to come up, about reparative justice for Africa? It's only with Africa and people of African descent that it's a question. But now is the time that we must raise that issue and raise our voice. And that's why I'm happy to see that the diaspora has come home to this call, have also answered the call around this theme, and that our own president, President John Dramani Mahama, is the voice for Africa, along with CARICOM, along with the U.S., to lift up the cry for reparations now. It's been too long a delay.
The Ministry of Tourism and Culture used the platform to reaffirm its Black Star Experience, an initiative launched under President John Mahama to strengthen ties between Ghana and the global African diaspora. The initiative builds on the legacy of the Year of Return in 2019, which welcomed over 1.1 million visitors and generated nearly $2 billion in economic impact, a reflection of the cultural and financial potential of the diaspora connection.
We want our young people, our creative community, our artists to make their songs about this, to make their dance about this, to be able to have their conversations and their drama and their films about this. We must use every aspect of our creative energy to send that single message out about reparative justice.
The theme of this year's Panafest, reparative justice, is deep and is broad-ranging. It speaks to not only repatriations, it invites us to come back. It invites us to set up inquiry spaces around what it really means, not to get money for those who left and who died in the Middle Passage, those of my ancestors, from whom I am a very strong representative. I am a descendant of triumphant survivors. But the justice aspect requires serious conversations and commitments at all levels to equity.
Beyond the festivities were powerful conversations on economic liberation, colonial legacies, and the need to dismantle systems of racial and economic dependency still haunting the continent. From the door of no return to the streets of Cape Coast, Panafest 2025 served as both remembrance and resistance, honoring those who came before and inspiring those who carry the flame forward.
And as we end the program, our Did You Know segment is on the current longest serving African leaders on the continent. In first place is Paul Biya of Cameroon, 43 years in office. President Biya has served as the president since November 6, 1982. He's the world's oldest head of state at 92 years old. Second place is President Teodoro Nguema Mbasogo, who is 45 years in office. The president stands as Africa's longest-serving president. He assumed power in 1979 after orchestrating a coup. He is 83 years of age. In the third place is Republic of Congo's President Denis Sassou Nguesso, who is 39 years in office. His first tenure as the President of the Republic of Congo spanned from 1979 to 1992. He returned to power in 1997 following a civil war and has remained in office since. He is 81 years old. And in the fourth place is President Yoweri Museveni of Uganda. He is 39 years in office. The president has been in power since January 1986 after leading a successful guerrilla war that toppled the previous regime. He is 80 years old. Well, that's where we end Network Africa for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Olarinde.